Hello, this is Craft Nomad. You're watching it on YouTube or possibly one of the other ways that you can connect to it. There's a website, www.craftnomad.com. I'm also Craft Nomad on Facebook, on Ravelry, and on Twitter. Um, Instagram is the only one that's different. It's silverfox.gray. I've had that account for a long time, so it was just easier to keep it. I'm most often on Instagram. I do have a website on Facebook just for Craft Nomad, and I post sometimes on there, but in between the broadcasts, I try to do at least one blog post on the website. So there will be more details about things that I may have talked about on the podcast or just something else interesting that I want to write about because um, sometimes I want to go into a little more detail in things. And I think sometimes it's better to have, if you have something that's a lot of detail, it's easier to have it in writing so that you can take your time, uh, and really focus on the parts that you want to know and go back and get facts that you might have missed if I'm talking too fast. And certainly it's hard to search for a certain thing uh, on a podcast. If you miss something, it's just really a pain to go back and try to find it. So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm not doing the traditional show notes where I have kind of an outline. I enjoy writing, and so there will usually be a backup article about some of the important things that I talked about. Um, I did have an email from someone who said I misspoke about a couple of things on the last podcast, and I didn't realize at first that she was referring to the podcast and not the article that I had written. So in the beginning, it was a little confusing. But the two things that I want to make sure to clear up is that I said that the lady who does the dyeing at the Sada Textile Museum was the granddaughter of the founder. She is the daughter, not the granddaughter. Apparently, the granddaughter does work at the shop that they have in Chiang Mai, but the lady who does the dyeing is the daughter, which actually she looked quite young to be the daughter of the founder, but that is the information that I have. And also, I was told that I gave wrong information about the location, and I apologize for that, but please understand that I use the Chongthang as the main location because that's the largest town near there. And apparently, the name of the village is on the address, and I'm going to hold this up for a minute. I believe it's the Banra Pa Gram, which please forgive the pronunciation, but the way they do the addresses is a little confusing because I would have thought that if the village was listed, it would have been after the road, and then Chongthang District in Chiang Mai would have been after the name of the town. But different countries have different ways of doing the address. So I do apologize if I got that wrong. And pronunciation, I really have no idea what is the correct pronunciation on that. Okay. As far as comments, please do comment. If I do make an error, I'm happy to change it on the blog or on the podcast. I'm not going to go back and edit the podcast because it's sort of like, if you make a mistake on a speech or something, you can't take back your words, and it's really hard to go back and find one particular section and change it, and it would just look out of place anyway if I went back and tried to change it. But I will announce it on the very next podcast if I know that there is an error, or just if you have some additional information, please post it where other people can see it. And the other thing I want to say is, if it's about a specific thing, try to just keep it really short in the notes, in the comments below, so that people can find it really quickly and they know what the correction is. And also for me, whether you post it on the podcast or send me a PM, just say specifically what the error was. Then if you want to add more information, do it separately, say, and in addition, blah, 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 so that I know I can isolate the things that I need to say to correct and the other things that are just additional information. Because, for instance, the person who corrected this, she gave me lots of wonderful information, but since I've already done that segment, I won't use that information until I do another segment about textiles, and but it's there and I have it and I do appreciate it. So if it's relevant, I'll mention it in the next podcast, or I may just save it because I know that later on down the road I might do another segment that's about the same craft, and I'll have some information, because there's a lot to learn about the crafts in any given country, and especially when you're a foreigner. Okay, so yeah, please, comments are really good because then everybody sees it right away, and it's not so urgent for me to, when I make the change, because it's right there. But keep it short, keep it really clear, and also ideas and suggestions. This is the theme is mostly supposed to be about travel for the person who's really interested in traditions of the country, especially crafts. So if you have information about things that I've talked about, if you have additional information, or if there's a particular craft that you would like to see covered, I can go ahead and go out and go on a location and then give a report back about it at a later date. And that'll be really helpful for me, because right now the textile is my main focus, but it takes me a while to find the people that I need to talk to in order to actually do a podcast, because a lot of the people that are in these traditional crafts do not speak English at all. So when I find somebody who is a craftsperson who speaks English well, then that's when I have that opening to get information from them about their craft and about tradition, and really give you some great information about it. So that's the one thing. So keep the ideas and questions coming to me. I'd love to have that, because there may be some things that I don't know about. When I first came here, I didn't know silver was a very important craft in Thailand. And then I was talking to a friend who had visited here many times, and she told me about that. So that will be something that comes up later in later podcasts. I'm trying to save the ones that are going to be interviews for later podcasts when hopefully I have more followers, because if I'm going to ask a craftsperson, especially somebody who has a full-time business or a retail store, for an interview, I want to make sure that I post that podcast or interview at a time when I know that there are enough followers who will actually see it. Of course, I can do hashtags and there's SEO, but there's no guarantee through that a lot of people will find it. So I want to at least know that they have an audience, and it's some benefit to them when I do an interview. It's a little different here than it would be in the U.S. It would be a lot easier just to call um, a knitting crafts person or a weaver and do an interview, because they're much more aware of the exchange uh, on different podcasts, that exposure will in the long run will still help them. But I'm an outsider here, so they may not see the benefit to them, and I want them to benefit, because part of the reason I think is so important um, is that a lot of these crafts are going to die if those of us who really care about crafts don't get to know about them, and for those of us who are interested and able to collect those crafts or be a student of those crafts, if we don't follow through, then eventually those crafts die away. So uh, I'm hoping in that way this podcast will benefit other people, not just me. And now that I mention it, the benefit for me is that I'm in a foreign country, and there are no knit nights or quilting groups to go to in Thailand. Partly it's the weather, partly it's the transient nature of the foreigners in Thailand. People are more outdoorsy here. There are a lot of crafts workshops happening, but they're always little one day kind of things, and people like something that they can do one time and get it done, and it's not the same as being able to go to a knit night every Thursday at someone's home, a restaurant, or a knit shop. So this is my way of still staying in touch. Um, Knitting progress. Okay, I do actually have some progress. I'm going to try to keep some knitting or crochet going so that I have some things to show you. But there's not going to be as much production as there would if I lived somewhere else, because a good yarn is hard to come by. Luckily, I have enough for several more projects before I need to order it from somewhere else. But yeah, if you're lucky, you can get. There's one shop in Chiang Mai where you can get wool that's from Spain, but really wool isn't the best product to work with. If you live in Thailand and you want to wear it, you need to have vegetable fibers rather than wool. So what I have here is a cotton linen blend. And I talked about this, I think, on one of the previous episodes. It's just a rib top, and I'm just really trying to improve my understanding of how making the arm side works. So I'm using Ann Budd's handy book of sweaters as a guide, and then I just made a simple rib. It's going to be like a fitted tank top, which I can wear a lot here. And although it looks really small, I swatched it, and it should be fine. And if it's not, it will still be a nice top. So you can see that there's still stair steps, although this one is just mainly because I had to tie off the thread. On this side, you can see it a little bit better. Let's see. Why is it not? Here we go. Okay. So the stair steps are there, but they don't stand out that much because of the ribbing. So now I need to knit maybe another inch, maybe a little less, before I start binding off for the shoulders. And I am also going to cast off some stitches in the center for the neckline, even though this is the back. The dressmaker in me does not like the idea of sweaters or any kind of garment where there's no curve in the neckline. It causes the garment to slide down in the back. And myself, I don't have well-defined shoulders. They're narrow, they're rounded. And if I don't have a strong shoulder seam and a little bit of curve in the neckline, then any kind of a top it's not going to sit neatly and really have that nice sculptured look that you want for something that you've spent a lot of time making. So this is a process, but what I like to do is find a project that I like and I really want to make that has the skill that I want to work on. So for this one, I'm working on the sleeves and armholes because I always kind of lose my steam when I get to that, and I can do it and I can follow the pattern. But with this, I don't have a pattern, and I'm doing it by understanding why it works that way, so that the next time I have a garment, I can follow the pattern, or I can look at the pattern and go, oh, okay, this part of it needs to be changed a little bit for me to make it fit the way I want it to fit. So that is the knitting progress. I have one other thing that I wanted to show you. Don't tell me I didn't put it close enough. One moment. Okay, I'm not even going to stop the camera. No, I'll stop the camera and then I'll do another segment with the next thing that I want to do. So, okay, the next thing I want to talk about is just a small crochet project. I've noticed that one of the popular new things that is happening with hats now are the messy bun hats. So you have a hat with an opening in the top and the ponytail can come out the top, or the bun can come out the top, and you can still wear a hat. And I was thinking about, well, what other kinds of things could there be that are something to do with the hair, because obviously I have to do something with my hair a lot of times, and hats are not something that's always a good thing for hair. You just have, we used to call it in theater, hat head. If you have a beautiful hat, you need to wear it somewhere where you're not going to have to take it off, because after that you just have the hat head and there's nothing you can really do about it. Okay, so what I decided to do was one of the little bun catchers that we used to make when I was younger. Let's say I was in my 20s, okay, just for the sake of discussion. And so I had some very interesting thread. This is hemp thread, and you can sometimes find it in the shops in Thailand, especially here in Chiang Mai. There are a few places that have garments that are made from hemp. There are a lot of things like bags that are made from hemp thread. And one of the shops will always have the end reels. So I bought some of this to try it out. You can see that it's kind of coarse and it has no spring at all. So it would not be good for knitting. But it works beautifully for crochet because it holds its shape and you're not going to have to do really a lot of blocking. And if you do, once it's blocked, it's going to stay like that. So the first thing we needed to do, of course, was make a swatch. And this is small, so I made small swatches. The first one is done on 3.5 millimeter hook. And as you can see, a little too holy. Even though I'm going to do something lacy, I can see that that's not going to give the pattern's not going to show up well if it's that loose. This one is a 3.25, and when you have thread this small, that fraction can make a big difference. So again, a little bit open weave, but it's pretty sturdy. And then the last one I did, I wanted to just see how small could I go and have any difference in the gauge. And this is a 2.6 millimeter hook. And there's very little difference in the gauge. You know, there's a point where stitches per inch are not going to make any difference, but the length is a little bit different. There are, but it's very tightly woven. So if I wanted to make a wallet or some kind of a bag, I would probably use this if it's a small item. For a bigger item or something that has to be really sturdy, I would suggest at least using two strands of thread, and I might even suggest, if you know how to wind your thread, if you're a spinner, that you would use maybe even a 3-ply. So this is what it looks like. Okay, I took just a very simple circular design. You can do any kind of circular design that you want. And the trick to this is, I'm going to turn it, you can see how it starts to cup here. What you do is, when you have the size that you think you need for your bun to cover it just on the flat part, then you don't want to keep making the circle get bigger. So you want to stop increasing. So from this point on, I stopped increasing, and that's just, makes it sort of cup. And I'll maybe do 1 or 2 more rows, and then I'm going to make a cord with lucette. A lot of the garments in Asia are tied with cords, and they have different little bags and things like that that tie with cords. So lucettes are pretty easy to find, and I will make a cord that will run through the top line of stitching, and probably some beads on the end or a nice knot, and then this will go, let's see if I can turn around and show it. We'll go here, and then you just need to tie it over your bun, and you'll have something really pretty to wear with an everyday bun. So it's a little more decorative. You could use all kinds of different thread, different patterns, and I will show you the book that I use. Is a Japanese pattern book. I have a number of these that I bought. I started buying these when I lived in Korea. They have a lot of the Japanese patterns. You don't need to speak Japanese because they always have charts. And I love that about the Asian pattern books. So this one has motifs. But a lot of them have, they'll have knitting in the front, and then they will have crochet motifs in the back, or crochet stitches. So this set has maybe about 10 different books of just stitch dictionaries. So you can see I've kind of made a combination of these two for the motif that I chose. But you can choose any kind of circular motif, and even a square motif. If you like it, you can just adjust the way you finish it to make it into a circle instead of a square. So that is the bun catcher. And I think I have time for one more thing. Um, Once in a while, I want to do a book review. So this one is called Itty Bitty Critters. And this book I uh, bought here in Chiang Mai. It comes from a publisher in Hong Kong called Tuttle. The author is Erin Clark. And these are all crocheted. And I thought it would be nice to show this because a lot of the animals are knitted, the animal patterns and pattern books. And personally, I think it's easier to crochet uh, any kind of a stuffed animal. These are very tiny, so if you don't feel comfortable with working with fine thread and making something that's really small, you might try doing the same patterns just with bigger thread because it will come out the same. It will just be bigger. Um, so it has all the basic instructions about crochet in the front, starting right from how you make that first circle and then how you make it into a tube, and how to sew the pieces together. But the thing I like the best about it is she's doing some things that are a little not so traditional. So for instance, here's a little terrarium, a crocheted terrarium. Um, and I also really like the flamingo. I think this is really great, and it's not something that you see in another kind of book. So if you're wanting to try stuffed animals, this would be a fun one, and you can make these pretty quickly because they're all small and they're not super detailed. You can see that they're pretty abstract, so it's a good way to learn, and it's fun. And a lot of people like to collect these amigurumi size knit or crocheted animals. Not just children, but a lot of young adults, particularly young adult women, like to collect the amigurumi. So they're fun. I'm not a big collector of little toys, but when I was teaching, I always had a little owl that I'd made on my desk, and I didn't think much about it. It was just something, decoration for my desk, but eventually one of the eyes started to unravel because we played games with it, and it just got a little worn, so I took it home. And right away, the high school students noticed and asked me, "Oh, what happened to it?" So they really did notice it, and it's just fun. They're just little decorations as far as teens and adults. So that is my knitting and crochet for this time. I'll try to do reviews, not every time, but every once in a while. I didn't have anything travel related this time, and I do want to explain about that. I should have mentioned it in the beginning. One reason I've been late this time is I wanted to go to the Lana Festival, which they were supposed to have here in Chiang Mai, and it was supposed to start 2 weeks ago. So a week from last Monday, I went because I wanted to see the first day, and I thought it'd be less crowded on a Monday. And I got there, nothing. It was supposed to be from 10 to 8 p.m., and at 5 o'clock, nobody was there. And there was no sign that they had been there and they were just, for dinner or whatever. There was nobody there. So then on the weekend, I got another announcement that they had changed the location of the venue, and it had been canceled for last week, and it was going to be this week. So I went to the different venue, and this time I went on Friday. So I thought, well, there a lot more people will go on Fridays. Um, so, oh, I'm sorry, not Friday, Thursday. And again, no one was there. I do know that they had the opening ceremony because one of the websites had some pictures of the opening ceremony, but there were no pictures of anything else. So, that being said, sorry I don't have any news about the Lana Festival, but it is a really good point of interest or tip to know if you're visiting Thailand, if you plan to go to an event, especially if you're on a vacation, you're just here for a short time, always have a plan B because things get canceled without notice. Locations get changed, and part of it is just the language. Sometimes things just that maybe they've been announced, but nobody translated it for the foreigners, the English-speaking foreigners. But it's also just that's a part of their culture, and it doesn't bother anybody that this happens. They just kind of go, oh, okay, they canceled it. Is it going to be at a different time? And it's something that's just normal to the culture. So plan ahead, have a plan B so that if your event is canceled, that you have something else going on. The other reason that I have been kind of late with this is I haven't been feeling well, and this is another thing that I want to mention about Thailand. And I really want to create interest in Thailand. I want to really encourage you to learn about and come and visit and see all of the beautiful crafts that they do in northern Thailand, because it's very different from the southern area down by Phuket, because we're in the mountains. But these mountains, one of the things that makes it interesting is that the mountains border northern Thailand, and you have Burma, Cambodia, and Laos all along the border. And then Vietnam is not far from there. So the geographic border is not the same as the border of the country. And all of these hill tribes are kind of a mix of the different countries because they identify with their geographic location and their tribes, not so much with the specific country. In fact, northern Thailand was originally, it was 3 kingdoms. And then I don't know all of the history about how the southern part of Thailand became part of it, because it's a really long peninsula there that's shared with Malaysia, I believe. But for many years, there were 3 separate kingdoms in northern Thailand. So in the hills, there's a lot of crafting going on, which I talked about last time. But there are also a lot of farms in the hills. The mountains are fairly high, but not as steep as the mountains that I am used to seeing, say, in South Korea or in Taiwan. So lots of small farms. And over the years, a lot of these small farms have changed from growing only rice to growing corn. And there's a lot of, what would you call it, business politics involved in this because of the seed agents who sell them the seeds and that kind of thing. But the problem that has occurred is that at the end of the season, they can't just plow under corn. With rice, you just, till the soil and you have another crop, usually 2 crops during a season. and it's not necessary to burn. But with the corn, they have to have some way to get rid of all those stalks, and so they burn them. And they are changing, they are trying to bring in equipment which will chop up the corn stalks like, you know, wood chippers, and that way they can compost them. But it's a slow process. The people who live up there don't have money for that kind of equipment. They're looking at alternative ways to burn where they capture the smoke. But the problem that occurs is that when they burn, the air is not clean. It's very, very toxic. And they started early this year. Normally, it doesn't start until after the tourist season is over. But for some reason, this year they started it in um, about the first part of February, and it lasts for 3 months. So I have my air quality app on my phone, and I watch for when it's over 100 on the PM 2.5 level, which are the small microparticles that you can't filter out of your body. Um, I stay inside, and if I have to go outside, I wear a mask. But I this time I really got sick during the last 2 weeks because it was over 100, so it was in the orange and the red zone for almost 2 weeks straight with no break. And this week, finally, I've had 2 days now where we have like maybe half the day where it's in the yellow zone, which is not bad. It's just a little pollution, but not bad. So, not to discourage you from coming to Thailand. I have no idea if they will do this again next year. Normally, the burning happens later, and I don't know if it's because that we've had a dry season or what. But normally, January, February, March, that's when all the tourists comes. That's when we have the good weather. It only rains occasionally, and it's very comfortable. And then April, it gets a little warmer. By May and June, it's really hot, and July and August are extremely hot. So if you like the hot weather, that's great, but most people come in the winter after the winter holidays. So I didn't mean for it to take so long to explain, but I wanted to be clear about that. Um, and it's just one of those things, and they say they're working on it, but in Asia, it's really hard to know when the change will come, because sometimes it seems like, oh, they're just never going to change, and time will go by and time will go by, and then when they finally decide to make a change, it happens suddenly. So I have no idea about that, but it did really keep me under the weather. I have ordered the better masks that will filter out those dangerous particles. So I think for once I get that starting next week, even if we have some bad days, I should be all right. So that's that, but I hope you will still love to come to Thailand and learn. If you can't come, you can learn about Thailand and learn about crafts. Please do if you have comments about anything about crafts that you're interested in. I also sew. I don't have a sewing machine right now, but if you have any questions about anything sewing, if I can help you at all, I will be more than happy to do that. Just shoot me a comment on the website or YouTube or on Ravelry. The Ravelry group is, I've set that up, but not many people know about it. So please do go and sign up, and be a little bit active on the website, because I think that's the only way people are going to start to know that it's there. Um, so that's most of the news that I have. Let me just double check if there's anything else. Um, I for next time, I think I want to talk about some technical things about podcasting. If you are a podcaster, please try to contribute if anything that you can. Next time, I'll have some questions and some comments about what my experience has been like learning to do a podcast. It's actually been much easier than it has learning how to do the website, which I even had help on. But and also, I'll save the friendship topic for next time. And hopefully, I will have a little travel thing for you next time. I have an idea of someplace that's really close by that has a lot of crafters, shops, and studios, and we'll we'll have a look at that. And that's about it for this time. So thanks for tuning in. Please follow if you're interested in crafts and travel, and please tell your friends. And I will be seeing you next time. Have a good week. Oh, the camera makes me crazy. Bye bye.